And there was the box that'd be like, are you LGBTQ? And I'd just hover. There was just something in me. I was just like, I'd hover and I was just like, I can't cross that. Like, I feel like I want to, but I haven't done it. Like, it was all of the kind of the biphobic, internalized homophobia stuff that I was still dealing with, where it was just like, oh, I'm not allowed to be gay if I haven't like fucked somebody, or like all of these things, or oh, I'm with like a straight guy. So it was just really, I really worked through a lot of that shit. But that was one of the first things I remember struggling with, was like, I want to check that box, but I felt like a fraud. And like, have I earned this? Have I earned my, like, what do I need to do to like be a gay? You know?
But first, a word from our sponsors.
When your mission is beyond missionary, step up your game with Liberator. Their collection of transformable sex furniture and sex toy mounts will put you in sexual positions you never thought were possible. Use promo code MANWHORE and save 40% off the best-selling Wedge Ramp combo at Liberator.com.
Welcome to the Man-Whore Podcast.
Shout out to all the bi babes, to the queer kings, to the toppy twinks, and all the straight guys trying their best. This is Billy Procida, and you're now listening to the Man-Whore Podcast. Welcome to the show this week. Exciting. This week, filmmaker and photojournalist Amanda Mustard is on the podcast. You may have seen her documentary on HBO Max, Great Photo, Lovely Life. There should be a subtitle that says Creepy Grandpa, but you know, whatever. It's out, and it's really, really good, very intense. And we're very much going to get to Amanda and learn about her in a little bit. But first, the AVN Awards are this weekend. This weekend, January 27th at 3 p.m., I think Pacific time. Polls will close for the AVN Fan Awards. And as you heard last week, somehow, some way, I did not ask for this. I did not campaign. I have been nominated. And I didn't even need to get a billboard on La Brea. I am nominated after 10 years for favorite adult podcast. I am up against some big greats: Plugcast, Lisa Ann Experience, Holly Randall Show, Horrible Decisions. And yet this is one of those AVN Awards where this is not going to the board. This is actually the fan votes. You make a difference, and it would be pretty cool if I won, right? I don't know if I'm supposed to win, but a lot of you seem very enthusiastic about voting. I'm getting your tweets. I'm getting your Instagram DMs with screenshots saying you voted. And so I ask you one more time to please, if you can, vote for me once. If you're nasty, vote for me once per day, per account. There's a link at the top of the schnotes, and it would mean the world to me if you could take some time to do so. It's a safe for work website, by the way. AVN, like when you go to the link in the schnotes, it's just going to bring you to the podcast page. There's no titties on there. You're not going to get fired for going to that website. When you sign up or log in, you're not going to get a bunch of spam. So please vote for the Man-Whore Podcast for favorite adult podcast at the AVNs. And, we'll see if I'm getting a trophy. Trophies are kind of hot. They got big titties on the trophy. Okay. Folks, go to manwhorepod.com for all the upcoming show dates. Naked Comedy Show this Friday. It's almost sold out. We got more tickets available for the 10 o'clock show if you want to roll the dice by the time you hear this. But again, manwhorepod.com. Yo, I have not eaten bread in over 2 weeks. Really ready to murder someone. No, I'm actually surprisingly not that going crazy. I'm not going to go on a tangent on this, but just changing my diet just a little bit, like eating a lot of protein in the morning and not eating the bread and not having the snacks and a bunch of sugary stuff and the drinking. Sunday I was watching the Bills-Chiefs game with some comedian friends of mine at a bar, and I hated that they ordered a bucket of beers and I ordered a glass of red wine. And the server, she was like really hot, and she had the push-up bra. She was set up to make money on football night. The titties were not just there, they were pushed in a way They were tip makers. They were looking like titty tip makers that night. And she's looking so gorgeous. And then she's making eye contact with me, confused. And I'm like, I'm not happy about this either. She brings me the wine later. She goes like, oh, how is it? And I say, it's sad, which is what I was ordering. So I thank you for bringing me exactly the sad thing I ordered. But I have to get naked in front of 150 people this week. So I can't have fun. Also, I had sliders without the bread. Hi, we're watching Big Manly Football. Can I please have my meat wrapped in lettuce? Kill me. But that combined with drinking at least a gallon of water a day, it's shocking how the cravings are kind of cut down a lot. And I have never gone this much time without eating carbs. There's something to be said about knowing that I can do it. Just like it was pretty comforting to I had to host a speed dating event a week and a half ago. And there was a woman who was really cute. We had an exchange early on. She's wearing a leather jacket. I'm like, this chick's got to be cool. Pretty sure they do a cool check before you buy the leather jacket. And she had the big ear headphones around her neck. I'm like, my kind of girl is cooler than me. That's my preference. But then she had to go and speed date fucking 25 guys. And regular listeners know that my desires, my libido, my emotional readiness to be out there dating and yearning for some kind of connection. It felt good to at the end of the event just slip her a piece of paper with my number on it and a smooth line compliment. Did she text me? No. But did it feel good to do that again? I haven't done that in a long time because I've pulled myself out of the dating pool. Yeah. It was nice to know that I can. And it's nice to know that if I need to not eat bread for several weeks, again, that I can. Before I get to my guest this week, Amanda Mustard, let's do all of y'all's favorite time to fast forward, the fan whore appreciation moment. Okay. This is the part of the pod where I like to give a shout out to members of my fan whore community on Patreon. You want a shout out? Be a member. These people did it. So you know what? It's nice to know that you can support independent content creators, right? Isn't it nice to know you can? And these people can. Shout out to Ladislav Vankov. Are you one of these Russian billionaires who are buying up all this New York real estate and that is causing the rise in rental prices? I hope you're not. But if you're not, then hey man, thank you. I hope you enjoy my balls this weekend. He knows. And I want to give a shout out, big thank you to Shiloh Beazle. You ever serve food to somebody and they don't order the bread and you just look at them and think, what's the purpose of your life? What could possibly be bringing you enough joy that you want a lettuce wrap? Do you ever look into the eyes of a man in his mid-30s who orders a white wine during the football game and say, I think you need to go home to your wife? I'm curious what questions arise in your brain during the day. And I thank you for supporting the show. And you too can become a member for as little as $2 a month. In fact, you can become a member for free. Through the end of January, you can sign up for a 7-day free trial of my Patreon experience. That'll get you access to Discord, community benefits, a shout out on the show, behind the scenes posts, and access to over 300 bonus episodes of the Man Whore podcast, including the hashtag All the Moans bonus episode that got me flagged as adult content. That's what I get for making a bunch of women moan for an hour straight through in an audio file. That was on me. So make it worth the slutty designation they gave me. Become a member today. Try it for free at patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. That's Patreon, patreon.com/manwhorepodcast. Amanda Mustard. She does not talk about sex or dating for a living. She is not a comedian. She is a photojournalist, award-winning, and she is the filmmaker behind the new doc on HBO, Great Photo, Lovely Life. Early in our conversation, I will address what made me want to reach out in the first place. And the documentary is basically her taking her pedophile grandfather to task. She interviewed him a couple times, and she kind of goes on this investigation of how fucking bad was this family not so secret? How deep does it go? What amends need to be made? Suspenseful doc. It grabs you in immediately, and that's not really what we're talking about on the show. We talked about her late 20s bisexual realization, coming of age. We talk about her unconventional relationship, unconventional in a couple of ways, neurodivergency and call-out culture, as well as a very important question I think she asked towards the end of, when we are calling out people who did bad things, what do we want ultimately? Do we want to be mad? Do we want change to happen? I think Amanda is trying to make change happen. Great documentary. Check it out. Let's go catch up with Amanda Mustard. Valentine's Day is coming up, everybody. There's still time to load up your play space with Liberator. Yes, my sponsor this week, Liberator. Their fuck furniture makes sex more comfortable, more pleasurable, and lasts longer. Some even say that their diverse assortment of squishy shapes are the best inventions for sex since the bed. And Liberator wants you to know that coming up for Valentine's Day, they've got some very special discounted bundles just for you to make the holiday not just more pleasurable, but also more affordable. Right now, they're offering their Heart Wedge bundle, an assortment of special Heart Wedge pillows, now in Valentine's colors. Cute. Their Loon bundle, a self-love bundle made up of a toy mount and a snuggle pillow with a mini bullet vibrator. Hey, what's up, all you pillow humpers out there? I know you're out there. When he's not around and you can masturbate the way you actually want to, ladies, I know you're out there. And their Black Label Wedge Ramp Combo Bundle. So many words for such a great deal for you bondage lovers. Liberator's all new, soft, supple, faux leather wedge ramp combo with cuff connectors for keeping your partner tied down. These are unbelievable discounts that will be up until February 14th. For more details, visit our Valentine's Day gift guide, link at the top of the boop schnotes. Liberator, when your mission is beyond missionary. But to answer your question where you're like, did I pick up on gay? Like, yeah.
Okay.
I picked up on something queer. Because you built a fucking shelf. You didn't, it wasn't like an IKEA shelf. If I remember, tell me if I'm wrong, I think you like got wood.
I was just drilling that shelf in. I did build this.
Right.
I did build that. I was painting that in the film.
Yes. And you were doing things with tools I don't necessarily know how to do.
Oh.
So that was one.
I think I was just using a drill.
Right. Yes. And to me, that like code's queer to me. Like,
okay, I appreciate that.
And then when you were packing the U-Haul.
Oh, literally.
Wait, well, it wasn't even the U-Haul part. It was the shirt you're wearing.
Yeah, that is the tropey bisexual shirt. I actually saw a meme on like the Reductress that was like kooky Hawaiian shirt by girls, whatever. And I was like, oh, fuck.
Yeah, I saw that shirt and I was like, yeah, that she kisses girls. I was like, that's, I didn't know if you were into men or not, but I knew you were into women by those like the last 5 minutes of the flight.
Oh, that's so funny. You're like, yes, gay. Yes, into both, for the record.
I don't know why that was truly when you were building the shelf. I hate this. That's when I thought I should have her on the podcast. Not through all like the fighter work you're doing in the movie. Just I was like, oh, like clearly is a little like different, non-conventional. You could see the like tattoos more. I was like, okay, we should.
All right. See
if she'd be down in the chat.
Let's sleuth. Let's see what's going on here.
Yeah.
True. Yeah. No, because I was very curious. Because I mean, your podcast is got a flavor to it, and I was like, oh, where do I fit into that?
Well, what did you listen to? Just like the most recent stuff, or
I listened to Peekaboo Points, which I realized was very long ago.
I was not very good, probably.
I mean, I could you definitely got more like you figured it out, like you figured out your thing. But yeah, I had just photographed her a couple weeks ago, so I was like, oh, listen to that. And then I honestly can't remember the names of the other ones. The filmmaker that did
Suzanne.
Yes.
Oh yeah,
that was really good. Great. Yeah. I listened to that one. I need to see that. dog.
It's really, really good. Wait, what kind? So what kind? What's my flavor?
Yeah.
What's the show's flavor?
I don't know. Well, it's a different flavor than all the other podcasts I've been doing.
Yep.
Like I've been kind of on a lot of like true crime podcasts, which I'm not a fan of. I'm like a very anti-true crime person, but I think it's
With
important.
those bangs, you're anti-true crime?
Stop it. Spicy. No, I really, really have like I'm a journalist first and foremost, and I think true crime is like rotting our brains. But yeah, no, I think it's important to, because I am categorized, this film is categorized as that. I just get directly to that audience and kind of pivot the conversation the way I want to.
Do you feel like true crime is to journalism what crowd work comedy clips are to stand up?
Oh, I don't want to speak for your world, but maybe.
Maybe?
Maybe.
Okay. Where you go like, that's not really what the whole thing is.
Yeah. And I just think like entertainment, like kind of monetizing the entertainment value of people's trauma is like fucked.
And to have like anybody to just like go, hey, you want to not talk about that thing you made that
and I was
everybody
impressed.
wants to talk to you about?
Yeah. Like I'm fine. Like people are not having the conversation that I'm like trying to have, so I'm happy to be the one to keep talking about it. But yeah, no, I kind of was tickled by the opportunity to talk about something else.
And so none of these other like true crime podcasts have been asking you about like your relationships or any queer identity, nothing fun like that?
No, nothing fun like that. But I have enjoyed people in like comments kind of trying to figure out if I'm queer.
Well, yeah, because you wore that fucking shirt. Like every queer chick under 140 pounds instantly was like, she's kind of like, it was kind of like daddy mom vibes, like building the shelf.
Oh my
it was just
God.
like, I wonder, you know, it was like that shirt was really just, I thought that was like almost purposeful signal to the world.
That's so funny. I mean, I thought the overalls would do it.
The overalls are in big. I feel like you know, a quirky straight chick who just into paint could be wearing overalls.
Yeah.
But yes,
It was the like goth Hawaiian shirt.
it's the goth Hawaiian shirt. But like any bisexual woman, you are in a relationship with a man. No, okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yes. My therapist knows all about that. Yeah. No. I have a fantastic partner, and we've been together 12 years. Ride or die. Let me tell you. Yeah. We met. I was a wannabe photographer. He was a wannabe writer. We moved to Egypt during the Arab Spring.
Did you not go to like
12 years later.
college? Like
I did not go to college.
Okay,
No.
so you're like 18. You just like jumped over.
I moved here.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved here and got 2 weird jobs on Craigslist. I ran a brick and mortar eBay store.
Okay.
And RIP. And then I was a personal assistant to a couple who are artists and both blind. So I did those jobs for a couple years before I left the country.
and you met your partner out in
Egypt.
Yes. Amidst crazy conflict.
Yes, we were both 21
Okay.
and like he wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a photographer. And we had like a kind of commune house of 10 people. There were spots for 10 people in 2 apartments across from each other, like a block from Tahrir Square, like where all the shit was going down. And yeah, he was one of the ones that moved in.
So you hooked up with your roommate.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I think we moved into the same room to save money after like a month.
After a month. Yeah, but I feel like after a month where you're like in another country, it's almost like is it even romance at this point, or is it this like localized romance where you're like, well, she's going to be my Arab Spring girlfriend.
It was just
for the few
crazy.
months.
Everyone was fucking everybody. It was just like a very wild time that I would never do again, but I don't regret it. It's like some people went to college. That was like my college.
Right. That was like your dorm.
Yes, it was very much like that. And it was fascinating for me because I was raised very sheltered, very evangelical. We can get into that. But And, you know, obviously moving to New York was like a big step. And I also didn't come out until I was 27. And my New York life was like having only gay friends. Yeah, it was just like a very wild, exciting experience for me because there were almost no Americans in the mix. And I was raised super duper small town, Pennsylvania, evangelical, lived in a bubble. So it was very, very eye-opening in a lot of ways for me. And it was fantastic. And it was also horrifying. The way that women are treated in Egypt, especially during that time, was like, it's one of the worst places in the world for sexual assault and harassment. So yeah, things got like pretty intense, like, you know, when the heat kind of gets turned up of like what's normal. I think all of the women that were there working in that time, like we all left pretty fucked up. I had a small stroke at 24 as a result of
what now?
As a result of the stress. Like it was a lot.
How long did you do there?
3 years.
You were there for 3 years. And at the end of the whole stint, you're like, want to come back to the States with me?
No, I had a transient ischemic attack, which was a small stroke as a result of just the stress living there. And I knew I had to get out, and I decided to go to Thailand because I had been there before traveling and just remembered how safe I had felt there. And it was kind of just like a knee jerk, like, okay, let's go do that. And I was like, you want to come? And then he came. And so then I was there for 7 years. For most of the film process, I was flying back and forth from Thailand.
Okay.
That distance was really critical for my sanity. To kind of like drain myself, working for like 2 months at a time and then go back to Thailand to like a life I had created that has nothing to do with anything in my family or anything else. And then I couldn't fly back and forth anymore. So I moved back full time 2021.
And he come back with you?
He has been working as a humanitarian aid worker for the past 5 or 6 years. So he always...
This wasn't even what I thought. Is this what you meant by unconventional?
No.
Oh, wow. This is awesome. No, because this is already unconventional. This like... I know it's very dumb and American to think like, oh, living in another place is not like having it's not like a cemented whatever, and it because like, but to me, I think it's like, oh, you're bouncing from here and then you're going to Thailand and this and then that, and I go like, when are they gonna like just like chill and be homely together for a minute?
No, we haven't. Thailand was that because we worked still as like a writer and a photo duo. Kind of just finding excuses to get people to pay us to travel places.
Well, because it was starting to seem like this, like almost like quasi long distance relationship.
It is.
thing.
It has been now. Yeah. So like the first maybe 6 years we were together all the time, and then for the last 6 years we've been long distance. Yeah. So he switches his country that he's based in, which is always where there's a conflict happening every year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think keeps you two together all this time?
We really share a lot of the same values and kind of just how we approach life. Maybe all this loosey-goosiness. Okay. Yeah, like we're very borderless people. And the older we get, the more we kind of look around and like, oh shit, like it's kind of hard to find somebody that like is willing to kind of lean into that. So, yeah. No, I mean, he's been also very, very supportive through my mental health journey over the years, like the film process. And then I came out in the middle of our relationship, which is a big kind of stick in the spokes. Yep. Didn't know how that was going to go, but yeah, I came out, and in the same moment, I also proposed like an open situation. And he was down to see how we could evolve.
What were some of the, I mean, obviously everyone is worried you're going to say that and then they're going to break up with you. Really, for either of those things. Both of those are like two different coming outs in one conversation.
I know, and I was a little probably unfair. I should have probably just did one at a time.
I mean, it's fair. I mean, you can always like, you let out the like, I'm bi, see how he takes it. If he's super chill. And then like, and maybe, you know, I don't know.
I had so much anxiety around it. I just like barfed it all out.
What was the moment? What was the night? What was the lunch?
The lunch. I think we were in Thailand. And yeah, I mean, I had probably started to come to terms with it for a year by myself,
Okay.
like on my own. And that was really scary to kind of tell your partner that, hey, like we've been together for 6 years. You know, there's this element. But he was not surprised.
He's like, let's open your closet right now.
Yeah. He's just like, come on. Like I wasn't surprised.
So it was a pretty easy conversation.
Yeah, and I mean, yes and no. It presents a lot of questions because it was new to me also.
Sure.
It was also kind of like, well, are you sure you're bi? Are you sure you're not like full blown? Like, what is like, where do I stand in all this? And so, yeah, of course it was.
But there wasn't
lot
this
of
initial like, you know, it was like supportive, but now we got a lot of questions.
Yes,
Okay.
we got some shit to do. We got some like stuff to talk through.
Some logistics to figure out.
Yeah. So, and yeah, I mean, it's like not even like a headline. We've kind of just kept fine tuning that situation, and it's great, especially given how like long distance we are.
Yeah.
It's really, and for me, it's like such an act of love to like have that trust and faith and want that for your partner to be fulfilled.
And how'd you handle all those follow-up questions? You're already in this like heightened moment of anxiety, and now he's got a lot of very fair questions to ask that you're like, I don't even know the answer to all of these. So like is this like one of those like epic 3-4 hour conversations with random crying? Was it a pretty tight situation? Have you blacked it out?
I don't really remember as much as I should. I think I actually asked him about it recently because I was like, what do you remember about that? And he doesn't really remember either. Like I don't know. Like it's also been a while, so it's kind of like it's just part of our story now, I guess. But it was. Have been we're a very healthy couple. We've never in 12 years said something that we regret or didn't mean to each other. Like we have a lot of respect for each other. So like it was tough, but we navigated it with like a therapist and kind of worked through the negotiation of what the open rules were going to be and all of that. And I
would imagine the rules have changed maybe once, maybe a few times since the inception of it.
Trial and error.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, a lot of people struggle with that. I think a lot of people go, what if we set these rules and then all of a sudden, like, I feel bad about it. And then is that going to end? It sounds, like, is there an example where a rule needed to be adjusted and how y'all came to the table to renegotiate?
It's interesting because when you first start, and I didn't want to fuck anything up. So I was a little too like anal about it at the beginning, where I was just like, okay, like there's no room for error. Like I have to, like if I get involved with somebody, it has to be super, buttoned up. And I wasn't even, I think something I learned was like, you have to kind of just like allow yourself to kind of make mistakes and like learn from them and like just fine tune that way. But having like the foundation of respect and trust. So I'm trying to think if there's like a specific example. I mean, I really let him, it was initially more for me to kind of figure out my identity. Right. So I really wanted him to kind of like, what are your parameters?
So what were like the initial rules?
Do I want to get into this?
Do you?
The specifics? I'm trying to think.
I'll fill the thinking time of it in that I think it's something that a lot of people, but so many people can relate to, also struggle with, have a lot of anxiety about. Okay. And again, like I think a lot of people think the rules have to be the rules, and they don't think about the rules as being like, or the agreement. Maybe that's a better word to use. Like the agreement can always be like changed and renegotiated, and it's a living document.
And that's the thing. It's like allowing yourself to kind of grow and but just like knowing that foundation of like respect is there, right? And ultimately
you shouldn't be opening up a relationship if that isn't there in the first place.
Totally. Like anybody that kind of leans towards that as a solution to like, oh, maybe this will fix this. Like, don't do that.
There are no magic agreement of opening a relationship. If the relationship's bad, there's no like special rules you can make that's going to make this all be okay. It'll still crash and burn.
It works when the foundation is very, very strong. So, it's just like having really strong communication. And ultimately, like we started with, I'd say, more specific rules to really try and keep it safe. Okay. But then realized that like, like you can't apply those rules to every situation. Yeah. It just makes it kind of stressful. And to just don't fuck it up. Like that kind of became the thing of just like, just don't, like, we know in ourselves if we're pushing a line or, stepping over something that kind of, you feel in your gut. It's just like, just listen to that.
Do you feel relaxed and confident in your judgment, I would say? Then?
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel very good at it.
Yeah. When do you feel like that set in?
I think it's like I've done a lot of therapy and a lot of self-reflection and like a lot of kind of work on myself. And in that I've become like a very good communicator and just how I treat people. Like I just really try to, be above board, so and the whole clarity is kindness thing, like it is so much easier to just put it all on the table and and it's hopefully with somebody that can also do that. Yeah. And you just work it out.
And I want to come back to this in a minute, but first, like, when did you first have like an inkling that others made you feel tingly feelings?
That's a good question. I'm not totally sure because it was this process. I do remember that there was a moment when I was applying there was like a thing, I think one of the first things that got in my head was applying to all these grants for film. Okay. And there was the box that'd be like, are you LGBTQ? And I'd just hover. And there was just something in me. I was just like, I'd hover and I was just like, I can't cross that. Like, I feel like I want to, but I haven't done it. Like, it was all of the kind of the biphobic, internalized homophobia stuff that I was still dealing with, where it was just like, oh, I'm not allowed to be gay if I haven't like fucked somebody, or like all of these things, or, oh, I'm with like a straight guy. So it was just really, I really worked through a lot of that shit. Plus just all the residual shame from purity culture of the 90s and all of that. So, but that was one of the first things I remember struggling with, was like, I want to check that box, but I felt like a fraud. And like, have I earned this? Have I earned my, like, what do I need to do to like be a gay? Yeah. And it took me a couple years to figure out that like only I can validate myself. And I think I was also looking to other queer people in my life. And it just happens that the few that I reached out to were also struggling with their identities and were not particularly helpful. And I think said some things that maybe pushed me back a little. Oh, yeah? Yeah, just, and even like getting on the apps, and at least just, it was baby steps. Yeah. Like this was a really scary process, especially I felt like I had a lot at stake. And
like putting your picture on a profile that is alleging
gay.
Queer.
Yeah. So yeah, it was a really difficult process that I'm honestly like really proud of myself for, because I'm in like I'm good now. Yeah. Like, yeah, it's like integrated. I've integrated it, and it's like, okay.
It's on the South by Southwest description.
Yeah. And it's funny to like, I continue to look back on my life and my childhood and the friends I had, like when I first moved to New York, like, oh, my friends were only gay. I was only hanging out, like making out with people at like lesbian bars and shit, and just being like, oh, look at all my gay friends. It just wasn't there. It just wasn't like clicking. I don't know how to explain it.
You're making out with gay guy friends, or you're also making
both?
Out with... Okay. So you were making out with women, but nothing was clicking.
Nothing was clicking.
You just thought it was fun.
Yeah. Just like my friends and I think it was, I don't know, maybe it was like Kristen Stewart in a movie or something. Something really original that that made me be like, oh. And then like anything in my life, if there's something I can kind of like oh shit, I think that's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to keep pulling at it.
Yeah.
And I just like, I have to figure this out. So at first it was like queerness, and then it became like neurodivergence, and I don't know what it is.
Oh, you got a
right
tickle
now.
of that too?
Oh yeah.
Oh, great.
Got
A
a
little touch
few,
of the tism?
few
It's my favorite way to say it.
I went in for the old tism testing because I was like, it would just make a lot of sense. And then they were like, we can't like confirm this because we're bad at testing this, but you are ADHD as fuck.
Okay.
I was like, what? I didn't know. Like never. And then I don't know. It's so interesting how like when you learn something like that about yourself, it is such like a process of grieving and like integrating this new part of your personality and or your being. So yeah, I feel like I got the queer shit out of the way, and then I moved into neurodivergence, which I'm still kind of wrestling with.
Yeah, likewise. I got to get one of those more official testings because when you were like, it would make sense. I go like, yeah, it would be weird if I'm not.
Yes, same.
It's like we should all be concerned if I'm not, and this is just a human being in the world. A friend once, I think it was like two and a half years ago, gives me like one of the online tests, like 30, 40 questions, whatever it is.
You got a gold star?
Yeah, she goes, yep, says you're autistic. I was like, I knew it. And then there was this like pause. And then she said, I opened a second browser for you and answered the questions for you as your best friend. And my answers made you more autistic.
Oh my God. That's so fascinating though, because like I learned a lot about I kind of caught a whiff of these things because my best friends have a 14-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
And she was probably around 11 or 12 at the time. And she was going through a lot of diagnoses. And a lot of the symptoms that she had, I was like, wait, I do that.
Yeah.
I thought everyone did that. And they're like, no,
Right.
not everyone does.
But then there's always the case where like, then you go like, well, it's not like that. And then it's like, I'm not like the guy from Atypical. So like, am I really? And then there's not too dissimilar to when you go like, am I bi? I've kissed some girls. It wasn't like a huge, am I? Until like you confirm it. And yeah, fucking identity is crazy. But like the last decade has been very identity heavy in the culture.
Yeah. And in a way I'm like lucky. I feel lucky. Like, yes, a lot of it can get like over the top too much, et cetera, et cetera. And it's also very American. Yeah. But I also am just grateful that the conversation is going.
Sure.
And that there is more permission to be like, hey, am I this thing? And that's okay. It's okay it's like safe to ask these questions. So like it's great.
So between the evangelical upbringing and thinking that making out with your chick friends at gay bars is just for fun, like there really wasn't that inkling till you started applying for the grants and you're having this hover moment, and then you have the conversation with your boyfriend, and then what's that first date?
Oh my God. It took me 2 years to actually like hook up with a woman.
Okay.
And that was like me in my own head. I was so nervous. And I was also in Bangkok.
Yeah.
So like I had gone on some dates there, and the community is very small there. And you're also working with, how many people speak English?
Right.
Like, so it immediately makes the pool smaller, because I'm not about, let's figure out this like wildly personal identity crisis while not speaking the same language.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Don't sign me up.
But like the first date, even if you didn't hook up, like what was that first like walking to the date like?
Oh my God.
Do you remember
shit
what you
in
were
my
feeling?
pants. Yeah, probably had to take a Klonopin before.
Okay.
It was just, it's so funny because a lot of those feelings of the first date are still things that I find dating women, which is like, no one wants to make, who's going to make the first move? Like, it's just such a, like, women are so kind and complimentary and like affectionate with each other. It's like, are we just being women, or is this flirting? Like, just like not knowing. I don't know. We are really, really bad at knowing,
I've
picking
heard.
up. So,
I've
yeah,
heard.
yeah. So it's funny because like that was very much a part of the first experience, and like it still kind of is like that. Like I've gotten into a place where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna have to be the one to make the first move. Like I'm just gonna have to.
I have the drill. I build shelves. I make the first move.
Just because also like it's it's not. I'm not interested in having multiple relationships.
Okay.
I think I'm capable of that emotionally, but like at this point in my life, I'm not interested, and that's not part of my partner and I's arrangement. So it is for casual sex, and I don't have a lot of energy that I want to put towards the kind of the dating process.
Yeah.
So I'm not like wildly proactive about it.
Okay. What was the first time with a woman in a more intentional way like?
It was very validating. Very validating. And I wish I didn't feel like I needed to like physically consummate the identity. I really wish I didn't feel that because I tell other people like, like you don't need it's true. You don't need to prove anything.
But gosh, it's helpful.
It is so helpful. It is. So after that, I was just like, oh my God, yes. Like check that box. Like I'm good now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just, and there's also a lot of grief associated with it. Cause it's like, I felt like I lost a lot of time. Like what if I would have been able to explore this younger? What if this? What if that? So I really struggled with like the grief of lost time for a while.
You missed all those years being like a queer 22-year-old who could have been dating 50-year-old, daddy dykes at the bar. Like you missed all that time.
Yeah, I missed.
them.
Yeah, and it
Now
was
you're this
hard.
normal, appropriately aged person.
Well, I kept saying it felt like going through a second puberty, but I'm like in my late 20s.
Did you like explode like when you first started? Did you just start going like, okay, yeah, date, let's do it. Let's hook up.
You could not do that in Bangkok.
Well, I guess
It's like
I suppose
20
whenever you
20 women.
I suppose whenever you got back to the States and could like properly
You mean during the pandemic?
I mean, look, I read a lot of stories of people not being too responsible.
Yeah. No, I mean, like I was also like 3 days after I landed in the US to like move here.
Okay.
We had still not sold the film and I was just taking a leap. I was like, I also couldn't keep doing it. Like it was miserable personally. You know what I mean? Like creatively, it was amazing when the funding was finally there and you could just go. You're just like, okay, now I can finally do it. But all the waiting and the fundraising, like it really, really wore me down. So it was 3 days after I landed here. It was like January 2021 and HBO said yes.
Okay.
So it was kind of immediately like work mode. So
Well, I think I was reacting to the whole second puberty thing.
oh,
That's what made me think
yeah,
like,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
she
yeah,
didn't like
got
went
it.
out and was like, hey, whoever, it's like,
Yeah.
like racked up numbers quick.
Yeah, no, I feel like I'm in that now.
Oh, you're in that now.
Yeah. Like now that the film is like ended and I like have more space in my everything,
Okay.
So yeah, and like moving to New York is great to just like have more of a queer community.
Yeah.
Like being in Trump country, Central PA,
Not
options
as much.
are limited.
Options are limited.
Yeah, especially for someone in like an open, unconventional situation.
Conventional situation.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And does he have, I don't have to get too into his weeds, but like, does he also have some freedoms?
He does, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
How do you handle that?
Very well.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it makes me excited for him.
Okay.
Like when you're together this long, it's exciting to be like, oh, what can other people kind of introduce us to, or just kind of adding that into the mix. So yeah, I am generally a pretty like secure person. And like even tomorrow, if he was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore, it's like, I respect that.
Okay. That's wild. You're like, we've been through war together.
Yeah, like we've been through a lot.
I don't think Jennifer's gonna steal you from me.
Yeah, and like if that's what you want, then I respect that that's what you want. Just like tell me. I think anything kind of goes as long as it's like honest and transparent and you're communicating properly about it.
Was there anything that y'all had to do as a couple? I know you said you did therapy, but was there anything y'all did to like prepare and like get like in the beginning stages of non-monogamy to feel secure in that, or do you just kind of go for it.
Yeah.
Some people like read all the books, and some people just trial and error.
I had read the books before I even brought it up to him.
Cute.
Like,
what'd you read?
Yeah. Oh, man. It's been so... What is the one? What's the one?
I mean, the old school main one was Ethical Slut. And then there's More Than Two is like the controversial follow-up. There's some other really... Open is another popular one.
I think I read that one. And there's another one. Can't remember.
What's really cool is there's like a lot now these days. Like my favorite's one that no one ever talks about. It's thin, it's short. It's called Designer Relationships. I think it's 120 pages. It is easy.
I like that. It's so freeing. It was just so freeing to kind of like approach relations, like just like reframe it and be like, oh my God, like this can be whatever we want as long as we're just like putting everything on the table.
I mean, when you were 17, what did you think like a relationship was going to be like for you? Did you have visions of that?
I mean, I went to like a daddy-daughter hand my virginity over at 12.
You did one of those.
Yeah. So it took me a minute to like shake some shit off.
Jeez.
Yeah, it was rough. I had the purity ring, I had the purity contract.
Okay.
Signed by a woman who later did my taxes.
Seems like the person for it.
Yeah, the church is a small world.
She can audit you for both things.
Oh my God. Get fucked. So yeah, like it was, I don't know. I kind of like hit the ground running with not a lot of tools. I had a lot of like painful experiences in my early 20s with men.
So you were dating men.
I was dating older men.
Oh, older men.
Yeah, I was that flavor of trauma. So
can't imagine where that came from.
Exactly. So
Wish
yeah,
there was like a movie that would like kind of show me a hint of
why. Unpack that a little bit. Maybe over 8 years. Yeah. So a lot of kind of stumbling, fumbling. A lot of shit went down in early 20s, which is it's just so tragic, like how often that happens. It's just like almost every woman has that same story.
Early 20s when you were still with, or is this maybe when you all weren't like...
No, I hadn't met him yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like it was, we met at 21. So it was basically between 17 and 21.
Okay.
It was like chaos.
The earliest of the 20s, as in like 20. Gotcha.
Yes. And big OkCupid. I was a big OkCupider.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I mean, it also stood out to me even just when you first said like, oh, when we were in this like compound, there's like 10 whatevers and where everyone was banging everybody. Even that made me go, I wonder how that plays into the evangelical stuff. You know, was she, breaking out into freedom? Was like, when did you lose the purity shit or the initial?
Yeah. I mean, it's such a process.
When did you give yourself that permission to be like, oh, I can have sex if I'd like to have sex?
I would say when I lived here in New York.
Okay.
Yeah, like right before I left the country. It was like. It was like a kind of date every other night kind of situation. Because I felt I was like in a pretty toxic relationship between 17 and 20. And it was, getting all the toxic shit all out at once and learning from it. But coming out of that, I was like, shit, I also felt like I had lost time and needed to kind of put myself out there. And I was just throwing myself at life in so many ways. Yeah. And yeah, there was some assault. There were some like getting drugged on dates. Someone put PCP in a joint. I like got out of the situation and this poor taxi driver took me home and I was convinced I was dying and he was like holding my hand. Like it was like really dark. There was just like a lot of dark shit. Cause like I didn't have the tools, the language, like a grasp of like what my rights were, like, and how we are treated by men, how that was modeled for me and my family. See Great Photo Lovely Life on HBO. And
then the way the church is telling you is another institution that's telling you what your rights aren't and what your service and purpose is.
Yes. And my parents' relationship was like pretty fucked up. And they went through like a really brutal divorce in my late teens. So like I just didn't have any idea. Yeah. And you just kind of are like figuring it out. So yeah, that's what, and then I started dating my partner and that was like that was one of the first times it was like, okay, this is what like respect feels like. This is okay. Even though it was still in like a very chaotic situation otherwise in our environment.
But on that like early, that, you know, like when you get out of the toxic relationship and you go on the string of dates, like how much is the purity stuff still kind of influencing how you behaved, or like had it been pretty shed by then?
I thought that I was like, yeah, I was like slutting it up.
Okay.
And kind of detaching myself from that, but slutting myself in a way that was actually just very focused on performance rather than my own pleasure.
Yeah.
And then it took me another number of years to kind of be like, oh, wait, like
there's more.
There's more. And I actually have a say, and like, I deserve, you know, pleasure in this situation. And then fast forward late 20s, when I was like sleeping with women, it was.
Then you go, oh, whoa, there really is more.
Yeah, like, telling me.
I got to report back to the boyfriend about this. There are some things we're gonna have to transfer over.
But there were, and it's like emotionally and mentally, I was all in. But it was so wild how there was a few times that I would have like, you know, pushed some boundaries or like tried something new. And really like let myself go in a way, and I would have a physical reaction in the following days that was like deep shame, like nausea, just like what, and that was that like latent purity culture still kicking around. So that was really interesting, because even though I felt like, oh, I'm so far past that, my body was still holding this kind of shame, and it was pretty. When I know what it is, it's pretty easy for me to like work through. But that was interesting. Yeah. It was very interesting.
Yeah. When did you tell him about the family stuff?
It kind of was always there. Like
so you didn't have to like come out about that.
No.
Okay.
I'm sure I did at some point, but it was, I think that if anything, I've had to get like more delicate about it over the years, because it was so normalized to me. And in my own kind of hot messness of early 20s, late teens, like it was very easy to talk about it and be like, oh, my grandpa's a pedophile. Like, just like, I don't know, getting too drunk and kind of like diving into it, just like, what the fuck? Yeah, no, there wasn't like a coming out. And I do not consider myself a victim of my grandfather's. So there wasn't a coming out about that. There may be things I don't remember, but I don't remember anything. Right. So, yeah, I was very lucky that he moved out of the state 2 years before I was born. So, and then went to prison 2 years after I was born.
Right.
For a couple years. So, bought me some time to like grow up. Yeah.
Okay.
Was that fucked up?
I mean, the whole thing was fucked up. I had no idea what the doc was about. I saw somebody tweet it. I think it was Ashley Ray, who does like a TV I Say podcast, which is really great. She's been on the show. She tweeted about it, and purely on that recommendation, because like I trust her judgment. I was dog sitting at my sister's very, very nice apartment, and and watched that. I was like I was Yikes. Glued. I was glued the entire time. First, I think that's what Ashley said. She's like, in the first 5 minutes, this thing hits hard, and we're there. Like, and I was like, okay.
No time to waste.
No, there was no time to waste. So I was just captivated the entire time. So the entire thing's fucked up. But that, like, for me, I was just sitting there having all sorts of questions about how all that fucked upness like affects you.
Yeah,
and then because of like what I do for work, I'm thinking, how does it affect like her sex or dating or love life? Yeah.
I think in my early 20s, it was like a lot rougher, but I don't feel as impacted by my grandfather specifically. I feel more impacted by how like the trauma of his children, like my mom, and being raised in this environment where the idea of sexual abuse is normalized. It's very normalized. And it's just kind of what happened to all of us. So like, this is what you expect in life.
Is that why do you think you didn't recognize your assaults as assault when you were in that 17 to 20?
Did not have the language, did not have the framework. Like I immediately was like, well, all of these things are my fault. Like they're all things that if I would have done this or done, you know, the dance that we do. Yeah. And it was actually through my experiences being in Egypt, which was like truly Like, just look up what was going on with women in Egypt during the Arab Spring. It was a true nightmare. And it became something I was like an advocate, like in the journalism industry about, of just talking about, the dangers and risks that women journalists were facing, and what happened to Laura Logan. That was just regular. Like, it was just regular, like, mass rape as a means of kind of quashing the protesters and discrediting protesters. So it became something I cared a lot about, and in learning about it that way, I started to look back at my life and be like, whoa, hold on a second. Like, there's a lot there that I thought was normal that is absolutely not. And that's kind of when I started the film. Like, I started the film when I was still living in Egypt.
Well, the first thing you shot was the grandmother part, right?
The grandmother part.
What did you first shoot in Egypt?
Yeah. The grandmother part, and when my grandma was dying, and then I interviewed him right after.
Okay.
So, and I wasn't even planning on making a film. I was going to like put audio over photos or something. Yeah. And then it was like wild how candid he was.
Have you gone and confronted like your abusers?
I did actually. Around Me Too, I sent a letter.
Okay.
That happened when I was 21, and it was, my best friend at the time's boyfriend. And it was, like, it took me a long time to even, speak up to any of my friends, because it was like a really tight-knit friend circle. And then when I did, it was like, it took me a couple years to find the strength and like the language to be like, actually, this is what happened. And then it would have been, when Me Too happened, I got the kind of courage to be like, I'm going to send a fucking letter. Like, I had felt healed to a point that it was like, I don't need anything from him. I just want him to know. Like, whatever narrative he has in his head, I want to set that record straight. So here's what happened, buddy.
Yeah.
And here's what I've done. Like, I don't need anything. I just want you to live with this, And then I sent a similar letter to her, his girlfriend, who had like victim blamed me when I came out about it.
And do you feel like what you were already in the process of doing with your grandfather, like, informed that?
Yes. Yeah. I was also pretty, I was very open in the photojournalism world about outing some fuckers
in the industry.
Yes. Yeah. I actually wrote an article about the impact that like this kind of really, really prevalent predation in our industry was having of like older mentors and older photographers towards younger women. And that happened to me a lot in my early, like, I started my career when I was 21. And I wrote an article about that, of like, hey, if you wonder why there's less than 15% of photographers are women, like, maybe get predators out of our way, because a lot of people walk away because it's so prevalent. And that came out 3 days before, I think it's 3 days before Harvey Weinstein hit the news.
Oh, shit.
And I was like, told you it's worth talking about.
That was like right after Louis and right before. I mean, every niche, every industry's, having their reckonings.
I think that there's a lot of parallels between the stand-up scene and photojournalism. Like, I have a number of stand-up friends, and
that's so kind of you.
We've talked about it. It's just like the unregulated nature of the industry, and like, how do you get jobs? Like, you go to like, you go to these like portfolio reviews, you go to like the right people's parties in New York, and like, there is no HR.
There's no union.
Yeah.
There's just
each other. Yes. And for better or for worse. So, the kind of like vulnerability of women trying to make a name in either of those industries I found to be quite similar.
Yeah. I'm still trying to figure out like how we determine like which stand-up comedians have done something that's, for lack of better language in the moment, like egregious enough to like, oh, we don't book that person no more. And like, and how you do that. And like, I run a naked comedy show where I try to take a little extra caution. There's like because like it's a like slightly extra vulnerable situation.
Is it just the comics that are naked, or is everybody naked?
It's clothing optional for the audience in the first 2
Oh, that's
rounds.
dope.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out.
It's a good time. Yeah. And so like, I had someone on the show a bunch of times, and then some stuff came out and I had to like have some conversations because stuff's like vague, and you don't want to make certain big decisions on things that sound vague but sound serious. But like, and I think we're all trying to grapple with that and figure it out.
Yeah.
And something that your doc really stressed, which I liked, was the whole just acknowledgement can be and could be, might not be, but like could be enough.
Yeah.
Like acknowledgement's a huge deal. And I've been of the mindset that like outside of the like particularly violent situations and some of the more maybe even gray area stuff, I think if a lot of people would just say like, my bad, like I did that, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do something differently, or I've figured out why. Just the acknowledgement that there's a lot of things that like people would like, a lot of these celebrities could get past, quote unquote, if they could just start with, I didn't realize that's what I did to you.
Yeah. And I mean, I will say this based on purely what I've read in the news. I do not know him and I don't know the behind the scenes of it, but how Aziz Ansari kind of responded was one of the very few times that I was like, oh, he like thought about this.
Yeah.
Like he thought about this. He's owning it.
And he seems to be doing fine. He's working. He's not like, his career is not fucking over.
Yeah.
Chris
like
D'Elia's selling out stadiums and he still won't.
Motherfucker. Yeah.
Yes, exactly that.
Yeah. Like that's the thing. And I've had a lot of these conversations where, it's like, what do we want out of this? Because there are people who like will stop at nothing and they just want them dead, suffering, like career ruined. Like I think the whole cancel culture thing is like very, very slippery. But like I look at somebody like Louis and it's like, it's this like petulance. It's this kind of like, fuck you, and it's like that doesn't do it for me. Like there's no interest in like the reflection there. Or maybe again, this based on my take of it, like comparing Louis to like Aziz's. And I do think that we need to create space for that, like for them to kind of like apologize and reflect. Like a lot of people don't even want to give that. It's just like, you fucked up, you're done, you're out forever. And I think that's unproductive. I'm very much in the middle, which is kind of why I was able to make the film I did, because I was like that with my grandfather, where it was just like, dude, you are like profoundly fucked, like profoundly.
Your demeanor around him is like almost like I'm like, she's like smiling. Are we allowed to?
Oh, that's nervous. That's all nervousness. But for me, it's like, it's not. I also, just like being a woman, like I am afraid of him,
Sure.
Like I'm afraid of him. And like we get small, like when we get harassed in the street, like very few of us respond in a way that we're proud of 30 seconds later. Yeah. We're just like, fuck, I should have done this, should have done that. It's just like, yeah, I did that through the whole film. Like I was terrified, with being around my grandpa. And also I had my journalist hat on, like wanted to get information from him, which you don't get by, grabbing him by the neck and like shaking him. Yes, part of that, it was the kind of very personal part of it, of just like, this is what I've seen every other woman do in my family. Like, this is just in me. And also like, I'm trying to like get some information here and I'm just going to be real nice.
Yeah.
It's like, it's that simple. Like, it's that simple.
But to get back to what you were saying before with like some of these like kind of public apology stuff and stuff with celebrities, it's, unfunny recent specials acknowledged, but I don't know if you saw this Dave Chappelle special called The Bird Revelation.
Is this the new one?
No, this is like from back when he was first releasing funny specials, back before he was obsessing over some trans woman who clearly broke his heart at some point in his life.
TLDR.
Right? He had one special that had a lot to do with assault and with, Harvey, it was post Harvey Weinstein and all this. And he was comparing it to Truth and Reconciliation in Africa. He's like, that should have ended in a bloodbath, but like it didn't, because people came forward and they said what they did. And then they could deal with it. And so ever since I saw that special, Scandal Acknowledged with the recent specials, but that it's my new, this guy P. Holmes, he says Scandal Acknowledged anytime he says Louis' name.
Scandal Acknowledged.
Louis, it's like that Louis joke, Scandal Acknowledged.
Yes, yes.
I think there's gotta, when you say, okay, what do we want here? And by we, meaning like not me, y'all mostly.
No, I think it's the collective, like for society. Like what do we want to do with this? Like, do we just want to be mad about it? I think a really fantastic example of this, and I keep bringing it up.
Okay.
And I need to learn their names. But there's a couple, I think they're Irish. It is a woman who, and a guy that she dated who raped her. And through, like, she healed to a point where she confronted him. He processed it, owned it. And now they do, like, they wrote a book together. They do a speaking tour. And I saw that. They did, I think it was like a TEDx or something like that. Or, and I was like, this is great. That was my gut reaction. I was like, this is incredible, because like, this is the conversation that we should have. Why is it always on the women to be like, oh, this is what I went through. This is, blah, blah, blah. Like, it's like, no, y'all should be the ones talking about this. Like, oh shit, I fucked up. Like, I'm going to own this. Hey, like, men, let's look at our behavior. Like, I think that it's the ideal situation for, someone who did rape somebody who maybe didn't realize that that's what it was. Maybe it's as simple as that. And it's just like, well, fuck me. Like, that is worth talking about. And I'm going to try to raise awareness about that. I was stunned when I saw like the shit they were getting online. Yeah. Like, there were like, people were really raising arms to get them to like stop doing their speaking tour and this and that. And it's like, what's the end game here?
Exactly.
What do we want? Like, what do you just want him to like just live in a dumpster? Like, I don't understand. Like, that seems like a worthy conversation to me. I'm going to pivot into something that people don't like talking about. I think that this is very similar to kind of what I feel we need as a society to kind of work towards with people who are attracted to children. Mm-hmm. The academic community is trying to move away from using the word pedophile for obvious reasons.
What are the obvious reasons? Do tell.
Well, I mean, so the word pedophile is not it's just a descriptor of an attraction. It's not an action. So you can be a pedophile and not offend.
But pedophile also isn't like just attraction to people under 18. And I don't know all the classifications, but I know there's a bunch of like, I think ebophile's one. And I don't think anyone should be allowed to know more than 2 of them. Otherwise, it just sounds like the type of knowledge you would gain from Googling, am I technically a pedophile?
Yeah. But I also think that like this is my whole unpopular opinion, is really wanting us to work towards a place where we can, people that have those very problematic attractions can have a space to like inquire about themselves and ask for help and like receive help. Yeah. And that is currently not the situation, because that's what actually protects kids. Like, if you just avoid it altogether rather than wait until it happens and then have this kind of performative outrage that comes from a good place, but like, it's not helpful. And, if you think of any kind of addict, like, if you really like demonize and stigmatize them, like, you're not going to ask for help. They're just going to kind of be in their cave, consumed by it. And drugs is one thing, but like, kids is another. That's all of our problem. So yeah, I really, there was a podcast I listened to in 2014 called Tarred and Feathered. It was the episode was Help Wanted by Luke Malone, who is now my producer. Wow. He's fantastic. He spent a year and a half investigating. That's on This American Life. Did I say that?
No. But
it's on This American Life.
free plugs.
Yes.
Whereas P. Holmes would say, delete that. Keep it.
Yeah. So he spent a year and a half following a group of self-identifying, non-offending pedophiles who wanted help, were realizing, oh shit, like, I am having these attractions and I do not want to. So what can I do about it? And had nowhere to ask. Like, they go to their therapist calls the police. Like, everyone freaks the fuck out. That's a problem, because, recidivism rates are actually very low. 70% of kids that are abused under the age of 18, it's by other kids under the age of 18. Like, our understanding of the entire issue is like, we just have a lot of bad information. Yeah. So I really made the film with kind of prevention in mind. Like, what is the public health preventative approach to this? And that's, okay, like, we do need to kind of humanize these monsters, you know, because they are human. And humans can be held accountable, where if they're otherworldly, they can't be. Like, our language does matter. Yeah, and I understand how, like, it's so upsetting. It is upsetting. And the reason that I am, like, not as visibly upset as most people, like, might expect me to be is, like, I've spent a long time thinking about this, and I've done a lot of research, and I've gotten very comfortable with the discomfort around this, and I think that's what we all could use a little bit more of if we actually want to come up with productive solutions that actually protect kids.
What would you say to someone who says, well, you are able to feel that way because you're not currently a parent?
Touche. You know, like, I think everybody has their, like, that's valid. Like, I mean, I don't think that's the only way I feel about that. Like, you might not feel that way because your grandpa wasn't a pedophile. Like, you know, like, you don't know pedophiles like I know. I know pedophiles. Like, it's like literally. Yeah. So yeah, like, take it or leave it. Like, I don't expect everybody to kind of have the headspace, you know, to you know, chew on that. But I've always operated, if I can get like 30% of people thinking in a different way, that's progress, you know? And, like, making this film, this is not like a headline takeaway from it. Like, it's embedded in the choices I made making the film. But I also think that, you know, my grandfather is he's part of the minority that I don't think wanted help or could be helped. But for at large, I like to have, like, a kind of productive conversation about it. I don't like all of the kind of true crime films about molestation, abuse, that's just kind of like a laundry list of, like, horrifying details. It's like, well, what do we learn at the end?
It's trauma porn.
Like, yeah, it's trauma porn.
What
like,
now, though? What are we doing about it?
Exactly. And that's all I'm interested in. That might be my journalism background, but it's like, wasn't going to make the film and just be like, hey guys, I want to, like, tell you about this crazy shit. Yeah. Like, that was not the purpose. And in fact, like, a lot of the craziest shit is not even in there. You know, it was very, very intentional. And it was also a real bizarro gift that he owned it. I mean, he minimized a lot, but, like,
which was the craziest.
Yeah.
That's what I think I think that's what ropes you into the doc is he's like, no, but big deal.
Yeah. Like, it's super fucked. And I do think there's some psychopathy at play too. So it's not like it's not like, hey guys, look, this is like a pedophile. Like, no. There is more cooking in that brain that has just been rotting for like 80 years. You know, like, it's beyond anything I can do at that point. But yeah, I don't think that he's a great example for the kind of messaging I like to have, the takeaways. But yeah, I just want to have, like, a productive conversation of, like, if we actually want to protect kids, how do we do that? And, you know, even if you look at, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you look at how much money we spend kind of putting an offender through the legal system versus, like, what it would, I think it's millions. Yeah. Like, how much you'd spend if you were just like, hey, like, we're going to have special therapists you can talk to, like, you can ask for help, and here are the interventions. Yeah, we're working with the Moore Center for Child Sex Abuse Prevention at the Johns Hopkins Hospital Center. Let me redo that. The Moore.
It's just really
they
fun.
Won't love that.
It's really fun how you think, like, that is going to get cut. But please, I do want you to try it again.
The Moore Center for Child Sex Abuse Prevention at Johns Hopkins University in Baltimore. They are doing really, really incredible work to get this research and this conversation going. There's not many people working on this front, but a few brave ones are.
Fantastic. Amanda, you've been, I should probably say at some point, we're here right now with filmmaker and photographer Amanda Mustard. I think this might be the latest I've ever introduced anyone in my 10 years doing this. So, but it felt like it needed to be said. I have two questions. Thanks for being so generous with your time. I have two. One's very short. One, you just go. But in the beginning of this, you had earlier, or I forget if it was off mic before we started, you had said, like, there are a lot of conversations people aren't having the conversation about your film you want them to be having. Was that it, or was there a different one?
Yes, and that's speaking at large, not necessarily like because my film came out. Like, it's just at large, like, that's not, we as a society are like pretty cool with vilifying pedophiles, and just like, you can look at any thread on Facebook, you know, when someone gets done in for something, it's, you know, put them through a wood chipper, do this, do that. It's just like, well, like, what's that doing? Like, you know, for the victims, like, what is that? Like, can we just move to a place where we can get ahead of this? Because there are things that we can do. We just don't want to talk about it. So, but yeah, and I felt like my film's not solving this, but I hope that it's kind of getting people, again, a little more comfortable with the discomfort of talking about this, and like, oh shit, that's the reality. You know, like, I can't put my grandpa through a wood chipper. He's my grandpa. Like, I got to figure out like what these relationships are. And that's what most people go through. So yeah, we think we might be helping, but with the anger, but anger can be a helpful tool, but it can't be where we like land. Okay. As far as a solution goes.
And then my final question was, as a bisexual woman, did you build this whole house?
You wish.
It's a very strong scene in the film.
Stuck with you.
It really did. It was Amanda. This was really fun. Thanks for inviting.
Thanks for asking me. It was really out of left field.
Yeah, you're really not the.
I hope I contributed something.
I think so. I think we had cool talks. You did some bi coming of age. We did some non-monogamy negotiations. We covered bangs. Good.
Covered pedophilia.
Pedophilia. Thank God.
Gotta catch them all.
No one ever seems to want to do that one, so I'm glad you did. And no, I think it was awesome. And talked to. I think we got the stuff. You feel to be Mark Maron. You good?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yes.
Amanda, where can people go to find you, follow you, check out your stuff?
I'm Amanda Mustard on Instagram. It's the only one I really have time for. Got my website, amandamustard.com. Got a podcast called Trauma Town. I'm working on a film very much in your world. That I can't say too much about, but it is the unconventional journey of a senior citizen woman to seek sexual freedom and love. So working on that. And then I photograph and film a lot at the Slipper Room in East Village these days. And I'm developing and shooting a doc there. Very cool.
Well, thanks again for coming on. And why don't you go ahead and say goodbye to everybody?
Goodbye, everybody.
Again, the documentary is great photo, lovely life. Couldn't recommend it enough. It is uncomfortable, but it is gripping. And it's not a docuseries. It's like a documentary. Like, you start it and then like 93 minutes or whatever later, it's done. You do not need to invest an entire weekend in this like 10-part miniseries. No, thank you. I hope you enjoyed the conversation with Amanda Mustard, everybody. I hope this is the type of conversation that will move you to vote for me for the AVN Award for Adult Podcast. Again, you can vote once per day through this Saturday, January 27th. At the link at the top of the notes, you can do once per day, per account. I'm just saying that part of it, but I'm not instructing you to do anything. But you can vote once per day, per account. I think that's not cheating. That's just, I'm telling you information. Link at the top of the notes, please. If you're ever going to do anything for me, help me win this. Go to manwhorepod.com for all your Man-Whore podcast needs. I know I've said that for a decade, but the website actually is like a website now. There's a store. You can buy merch. You can see my upcoming stand-up dates. It's a real place now. But again, the main call to action is AVN. Let's win this. Stay slutty.